Hello, everybody, and welcome to the What's Happening podcast. I'm your host, Paul Murphy, and this season we're interviewing GPT creators. What's Happening is brought to you by 3 Advanced, the development team that turns prompts into products. And today we got a bittersweet episode. This is the last episode that Raf and I will be sharing the microphone. Rafael is handing me the baton as I take it from here, and I'm excited and thankful, Raf, for getting us off the ground. Thank you for teaching us how to do the podcast. Thanks for making it happen. Thank you for all the tips and tricks and for your professionalism. I really appreciate it, my man.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on as a guest today.
So yeah, back to the show. Rafael Testai. Today, I have the privilege to interview you. So, Raf, I know all about you, but the listeners don't know all about you. You created Statute Matcher, the GPT that helps survivors of domestic violence. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Raf. Tell me about the GPT, how it's helping people, and the background behind it. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on. So essentially, I built a GPT that's now a nonprofit. And the GPT, what we call in this industry, it scratches your own itch. That's what it's called. So it solves a problem that you have. And I survived domestic violence, and I realized that the meat and potatoes of the conversation should be something that are called criminal statute codes, which are often overlooked by our current first responder organizations. It's like a gap in the system, but it's critical. You can't overlook this. And I realized that we needed to have a tool, and artificial intelligence is perfect for this, to match your situation when you input the abuse you've been through and have the AI tell you the potential criminal statute codes that correspond with the abuse you suffered. Because once you have these codes, just speaking from some of our users, it really gives people the confidence to leave the abusive situations, to be able to report it adequately, and it puts the abusers on their heels because now they know that they have to match up to the letter of the law. And if you have the satisfying documentation to hold the person accountable, you have a lot of leverage. And whenever you do this, a lot of them have children with the abusers, and it could greatly impact child custody situations. If one of the parents was abusive, depending on the judge and their experience, you may have leverage and you may get full custody of the child, which in effect could end the cycle of trauma that's being passed on to the next generation. So it's generational. So I'm so glad to be on the podcast today to share this.
It's incredible. And this is sort of like one of the most powerful things about AI. There is so much information out there, right? But it's impossible for one human to consume all the information. And especially in a situation of trauma, of distress, in today's society, unfortunately, the shame around this, and to be able to put this resource in place to allow folks to get some answers before, and even, unfortunately, in place of some of the services that are out there. So, Raf, tell me about some of the impact so far. Have you any stories? Have you any, is it touching people? Have you a lot of people using it? What difference has it made?
Fantastic. Great question, because just this morning I had a conversation with one of our survivors that used statutematcher.org, and she also turned herself into a domestic violence advocate after it. This seems to be a pattern. When it happens to you, it's like God calling you to help other people in the similar situations. So her situation is fantastic. Her name is Michaela, and her story will be featured on our website, statutematcher.org, probably by the time you watch this. So you can watch the full episode there. But in a gist, Michaela is a single mom, and her ex-partner was a police officer, right? And he actually domestically abused her, and unfortunately the child too. And she found me, and she went to our website to just input the situation of what had happened to her and her child. And it turns out that there were corresponding statute codes that represented this abuse. And with the call that I had with her this morning, she kept on saying that it gave her confidence to stand up for herself, to leave that abusive situation. And beyond that, you can use Statute Matcher to help guide you, not as advice, but resources in the legal system. So she was able to get the forms. You can just ask Statute Matcher, what forms do you think I should fill out? So in essence, she was able to self-represent herself against her abuser, who was a police officer. He had a lawyer that was extremely aggressive, and she stood strong in front of them and gained full custody of the child. unbelievable story.
Wow. Well, we've done a lot of work at 3 Advance over the years with the National Network to End Domestic Violence. So we're very much in tune with the realities out there. And the reality is it's almost impossible sometimes to escape some of these situations. Now, having a tool like Statute Matcher, it opens up, like you mentioned the word confidence a bunch of times already. Like, it's about being able to make the difference and make a change. And it's fantastic that this is out there. But Raf, let me rewind a little bit. Like, how did you discover OpenAI, ChatGPT? Were you looking for answers? How did you invent this piece of technology? Because it's valuable. I can see the value now, and understandably, when people see it, they can use it. But like, how did you arrive here? How did you get here?
I saw an Instagram post back in November last year that Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI or ChatGPT or OpenAI, they had announced the GPT store. The moment I saw that, I was on it. It's like, I spent the next week glued to the computer calling all my friends. Did you know about this ChatGPT? I have friends that are even software developers and they haven't even heard it by then. And I would send them the speech on YouTube, but it was like 30 minutes long. And one of my cousins, she's a software developer, Luz Testai, if you're watching this, she's a software developer in Madrid, in Spain. And they don't get the news so soon because they speak Spanish. And I noticed that there's a gap also, just for users to listen to this. Everything that happens in English, like, we get it first, and it takes there's a delay of a week for them to get it.
Yeah.
So I was on it and I started dabbling with it and I got pretty good at it right away. And
when did you realize, when did things click that you could use this to solve a serious problem, like a real world problem that's affecting probably millions of people across the globe, right? How did you put 2 and 2 together? When was the eureka moment?
Yes, because my situation was a catastrophe, just all around, the worst thing that could happen to a man, basically. And I have no money, nothing. So I happen to have just $200 and I'm in emotional distress. I'm discombobulated, worst moment of my life. Call a criminal attorney and he says, okay, $200 an hour. So I pay him all I had. He does what's called statute matching. I'm like, statutes? What does that even mean? Like Statue of Liberty? Like, what is that? No, these are like your rights, the laws. And there are new statutes passed like almost every year that really represent the abuse that you suffered. So just like we're doing right now, like, tell me what happened to you and I'll match you with potential statutes. So I'm talking to this criminal attorney and he starts using Google or like different like lawyer resources to like, okay, and she did what? And she put a GPS tracker in your car? That's a felony. And you have these text messages? That's emotional distress. And he starts giving me all these codes. And he's like, I want you to re-engage with police. Because the police, they didn't believe me. They didn't want to take my evidence. They were like, they had their mind set as to what happened. The officer, this is all in the police reports. And many people may be able to relate to this. The officer said, it's what she said and what you said. And the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So everyone's got these biases. But unfortunately, when someone lies so much, they anchor and the truth is not somewhere in the middle. And okay, so he tells me, I want you to re-engage with police, but this time do it different. I want you to lead with the statute codes. I want you to say, officer, respectfully, I have these statute codes that I would like for you to review. And I got these hundreds of audio tapes and video and everything to satisfy statute requirements. Now, I want you to uphold my rights and to the full extent of the law, prosecute this case. So I sent my documentation. Next thing you know, I was right. They tell me like, you know what? You were right. We're going to send her to the prosecutor for felony domestic violence charges. And it's like, they apologize and everything went through like it was supposed to. But in that moment, I knew I was like, I did something that most people don't do. And I want to give justice to people. I heard about OpenAI and I was like, well, what if I can train the OpenAI to do what the lawyer did for me so other people can have the outcome that I had? And I did that like at 2 a.m. and I remember I did it and I got out of the chair and I was like, oh my God. Like I think I cursed in Spanish. I was like, I said something, I can't believe this. That was the moment. And before I finish, I have to give all credit to God. I think God gave me this idea. I'm not that smart to come up with this myself. And I told myself when I was at my highest point, I was going to tell people that God gave me the idea and he pulled me out of despair.
I love it. I love it. So it's like, yeah. So you're basically, instead of hiring lawyers, researching online, spending so much money, you can now head over to Statute Matcher and start answering questions, adding some details, coloring the picture, and suddenly your GPT, and I want to get more back into the technical side of this, your GPT does what a lawyer might do. It starts listing out different statutes and how you would maybe collect evidence, or how you would create your case or bring your case to law enforcement. Is that correct?
Yes, it is like having an attorney by your side 24/7 answering all your questions in Spanish, English, any language, and it's versatile in laws of all 50 states and all countries around the world.
So let's switch to the GPT itself, because I am curious about this. It started off as a GPT in the GPT store. Is that where the GPT is now? I know you've mentioned statutematcher.org. Where are we on the journey of this product, in essence?
Okay, so in order to answer this question, I have to provide context. This all seems like it happened to the perfect person. It's almost like someone orchestrated the plan to happen to me so I can solve it for people, but I'm going to take none of the credit. It's all for God. So I was a founder of a mobile application, and so I have experience managing software, talking to users, being a product manager, having that detective instinct as to what the user is thinking and feeling. And I realized back in the day, to send people to OpenAI and have them pay $20 to use a GPT, too much friction, too much. You agree with this, Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too much. Gotta create the account. What's worse than one login, Paul? 2 logins, like 2 credentials. You gotta log in, you gotta put your credit card information. My customer, they feel very uncomfortable creating that because they're in the situation of distress. They may not even have the credit cards, the abuser may have. Way too much friction. I was like, there's gotta be a way around this. So do I have
it's almost like a question of accessibility, right? Because AI has created this, has provided this accessibility to millions of people of doing things they couldn't do before, but it still has behind a wall. Folks have to understand OpenAI, ChatGPT, register, pay, whatever else. And especially, like you say, everybody's not technical. Everyone doesn't know how to use these, nor do they want to put their personal information somewhere. So what's the solution? What do you do about that?
So I did a lot of research and I found a third-party provider that would allow me to integrate ChatGPT 4 Plus into a website with no login, completely anonymous, and for free. Bingo. So I got that done, and then I went back to my users, and now they started chatting with it.
It's great. I got a question about that, right? So you, again, some of the GPTs that we're covering here are being monetized, have been monetized, or are going to be monetizing. This service, this community service, ultimately is available for anyone to use free. How do you fund that? Like, how do you make that happen?
That's the part that I need help with. So I promised that this was going to be completely free, always. And it's really good to have that mission and vision when you start out early, because then you don't get sidetracked when people make suggestions, because you know what this is supposed to look like in your mind. And when people say, this is fantastic, you just saved me $200, why don't you charge $20 for it? No, I can't charge, because I know what it's like myself to be in a place where you have no money. Even if it's 99 cents, it's too much money.
Yes. Yeah. So again, where does this move to? This isn't a business. You mentioned a nonprofit. It is a .org. Tell me about this. Is this a nonprofit? Have you, in essence, turned your GPT into a nonprofit? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's a perfect segue. So yeah, in this moment, I want to tell the audience how to turn a GPT into a nonprofit. And I got 5 steps you can follow. And I am certainly qualified to share this with the audience because I've done it myself. And I'm going to show the proof. So I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to send us to the Arizona Corporate Commission's website, which is where you can register your companies.
And so you registered a nonprofit. You actually created a nonprofit from this?
Yep. So let me know where you can see my screen.
Yep, looks great.
All right, so for us, it's the Arizona Corporate Commission. This is us. It's a domestic violence nonprofit. And the name, let me see, statute. So Statute Matcher.
How difficult was the process of registering the the organization.
Right. So you have to go to the Arizona Corporate Commission and you follow a sequence of steps to do this. And I'll answer that in a moment. First, I want to show a little more credibility before I get into that. So you can see here are our board of directors, which every nonprofit needs at least 3 that are not related by blood or marriage in order to have them. And this is public record. And then you can go to document history and you can pull up our articles of incorporation, which are 6 pages. Now, this is usually, you can still see the PDF, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is usually drafted by an attorney, but I didn't have the money to get an attorney. So what did I use? Artificial intelligence. But I paired that with also reading a book about nonprofits. So I didn't just tell AI to draft it for me.
Rafa, are you going to create a nonprofit registration GPT next? Because this is something that people probably want help with as well, right?
Yeah, actually I already did it. So I think it's the number 1 501c3 nonprofit on the ChatGPT store right now.
That's great.
But
great. And I did not know that.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
But it is a good idea to read a book to accompany that. And yeah, so officially it is a nonprofit. And I know that, how can I say, the document that I drafted has been thoroughly reviewed because it got rejected twice. And it was like small things like the title here or delete this word. But 99.5% of the document was correct.
Yeah.
And everyone can do this. So I'm a big advocate for using AI for good, for social cause, for the poor, the people that have the least, the ones that can't afford attorneys, the people, I think, Paul, you mentioned there's another GPT about people that were incarcerated trying to get back into society, right?
That's right. Yeah, I was inspired by your GPT, Rafael. Same kind of problem. There's a lot of information out there, but it's not accessible. So, making that legal information accessible and easy to use is critical.
So now, if you like, I can give you the 5 steps to turn a GPT into a nonprofit.
Love it.
All right. Step number 1, have the GPT help you do something remarkable. It's kind of ambiguous, but use your instinct to think what is something remarkable that a GPT really helped you do. Step number 2, validate your hypotheses. Are you the only one that has had this problem? See if you can have the GPT solve the problem for other people and see what the reaction is. So if you got enough validation, step number 3 is file your articles of incorporation, like I just showed you, with your state. And you can use the GPT that I built, the 501c3 GPT, to help guide you. You can ask it, what website do I go? What form do I fill out?
Right.
It's only $65 in Arizona, something like that, and you can draft it all yourself. You don't have to go to all these different websites or hire an attorney. Just sit down, read a book, use the GPT, and if it gets rejected, they'll tell you what's wrong with it, and you can just redraft it and send it again for free. You only pay the $65 one time, so you got almost nothing to lose. Step number 4, collect testimonials. This is what I was doing this morning that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I do video calls with some of our users that are courageous enough to share their stories, and I just get their testimonials. I get them to write letters for us, letters of support. Step number 5 is where we're at right now, to get funding. So if you know how to get funding, let me know, because I haven't figured that one out.
Well, I got a question for you. On your website, are you able to, is there a donate button? Is there a simple way to donate if you visit your website?
Yeah, that's actually one step that we should implement. We're in the process of getting approved to be a 501c3. So I didn't want to ask before getting approved. That's where we are.
Yeah, I know Stripe.com is a great place to integrate like payments, and they have nonprofit programs and donations, and that's also a couple of immigrants, 2 Irish immigrants started Stripe, Raf. So you gotta be in favor of that one as well.
Stripe was made by Irish immigrants?
Two Irish guys who ended up here early on, super smart, went to Ivy League schools as 15 and 16-year-olds, and created Stripe, the multi-billion-dollar company, changed the industry, changed the world.
Gee, if they have so much money and they feel like they want to give back, I exist,
I love it. So, Raf, what is the future? The future is building up this nonprofit. I presume donations is a big part of this. Hopefully, foundation grants. What else? What else do you see in store for Statute Matcher?
I've gotten really clear on the vision and who's our end user. So while any survivor watching this, you can go to statuematcher.org, readily accessible for you to use. Really, our end customer is domestic violence organizations and first responders. We are the perfect complement to their staff, to their advocates, to help the people that they're so passionate about helping. They're truly heroes. And we want to provide that tool that complements them. So the other day, I read a quote that was something along the lines of, I want AI to do the laundry and dishes for me so I can do artwork, right? We want to delegate it, like the heavy stuff, to AI. So how this translates, part of my vision that you asked me, is the future advocates to have this statute matcher companion open on their browser to help the victims, but also they can give the tool to the victim themselves. But really our end customer is the organizations. And we already have 4 of them using Statute Matcher every day. We want to build that network, and it will always be free.
I love it. Well, Raph, we're nearing the end of the podcast. I'm so glad we got to do this because it's given me a chance to get deeper into Statute Matcher. We haven't talked about it recently, and it's so amazing to see, both to hear the stories as well as to see the progress made. Any final words about Statute Matcher or anything else before we wrap this one up?
Yes, thanks, Paul. So I don't want to take any of the credit. I don't have to have my name on any of the victories. And the reason I say that is because even though there may be, I think there's another one called Amy Says. And I'm so happy about sharing the platform with them here because we're all in this together. My goal, I want to make a living from helping people with AI and domestic violence.
Yeah.
I don't have to become wealthy. I don't have to have a very fancy car or a nice house. Like, I just need to make a living from this and I'll be happy economically because I get a lot of fulfillment from the work that I do. So I'm sharing that because I don't see other people using AI for domestic violence as competition. I want to help. I want to give them a shout out on the podcast today. And it may be that some of the older nonprofit organizations that they're maybe a little hesitant and have healthy skepticism about integrating AI. Maybe it's not my calling to solve the whole problem myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I would love to work with them and help them integrate the AI. But just maybe another scenario could be that they see Statute Matcher having some success and it'll make them question, like, maybe we should integrate AI. Maybe we're not going to hire Statute Matcher or Rafael Testai, my name, to do it for us, but maybe it's worthwhile considering. And I would be totally okay with that. Although I think I'm the most passionate person about the subject and I would love to do it myself and work with them.
Yeah.
But if that's the route to go, ultimately we'll get to the end goal in my mind, which is helping the people. I'm not going to lose track. This is not about me becoming famous. It's not about making money. It's not about any of that that's personal. It's about helping the people that need it most. And that's where my focus is. Having a life of service. I don't want to cry. Yeah, that's what the purpose is.
I love it. It's an incredible cause. It's so important. I think I love the attitude. I feel this way so much in my own day-to-day work is, the rising tide raises all boats. And this boat's got to be raised. Your boat needs to be raised as well as a lot of others in this space. And I'm truly thankful that you're doing it. And before we wrap up the podcast, this episode, I do want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, Raf, for teaching me how to get this podcast up and running, for getting us moving the past few weeks and interviewing the handful of first guests that have been on the show. Really exciting. I wish you all the best with Statute Matcher. You said it before, if it helps one person, it's a success, and I can see it one by one. You're going to help people, and it's going to continue. And I am honored to watch it happen, and will help you in whatever way I can. So thank you. And thank you to everybody else. Thanks for joining us on this episode of What's Happening. We're following GPT creators, podcast brought to you by 3 Advanced, the apps and AI development team for startups. You can catch us on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, all the usual. And don't forget, I got to give a shout out to our newsletter. The What's Happening newsletter comes out every Tuesday, using tech, apps, and AI. Get on it, subscribe, let us know what you think. Signing off for now. Thanks again, Raf. Sláinte.
Thank you.